Hey guys, I'm LT from Blind Horse Knives, and today I'm here with Brad Stallsmith from Peter's Heat Treat. Hey Brad.
How you doing?
Good to see you, brother. Always good to have you around. Brad, can you tell us, let's start with the very low end, let's say like a 1095 series, right on up to the exotic stainlesses that we have today, and what makes each one of those different?
Okay, all steel kind of started from a plain carbon steel. That was the first steel that was made. Plain carbon steel involves having mostly iron, 95%, 96% iron, a little bit of manganese, which is actually the first alloying ingredient added to any piece of hardenable steel is manganese, and then carbon. So plain carbon steels have just those three ingredients in them. And that's where heat treat started, and that's where steel making started. So they invented that first simple piece of carbon steel. Well, they had these other alloying elements that we can add to that.
Mm-hmm.
So as you add alloying elements, you have to increase the temperature that you heat treat. So that's one aspect of adding elements. You have to increase the heat treat. The more you add into that piece of steel, the higher you have to go to get those ingredients to mix. So they threw in a little bit of 0.5% of tungsten and 0.5% of moly. So just very small percentages. Changed 1095 into 01. Okay, that 1% of extra alloy, 0.5 moly and 0.5 tungsten, added a little bit of toughness and added quite a bit of wearability. So that's why 01 is such a great edge holder as far as the carbon steels go.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, there's about 8 to 10 major alloying elements, and as you add those alloying elements, you increase the complexity of your steel, and you're moving up the scale as far as temperature during heat treat. So you have, for instance, I'll just throw some steels out here. A2 and S7 are kind of one step up from the oil hardening steels, the bottom end of the tool steels. They each have about 5% of ingredients in them versus 1% for the carbon steels. So you've moved up to 5%, a little bit of chrome, a little bit of moly. Then you take the next step up into your super tough steels like CPM 3B. Has about 10% alloy in it. It's got 7.5% chrome and 3 vanadium. So you're adding those different alloys to increase hardenability, increase wearability, increase corrosion resistance in your piece of steel. So as you move up the scale towards the stainlesses, you end up with about 15 to 20% alloy. Obviously, the more alloy you add to a piece of steel, like I said, it increases the complexity of the heat treat. After that first step of adding some alloy and getting up to S7 and A2, the next step up would be D2, very common steel, 11% chrome, a little bit of moly, a little bit of vanadium for about 13 or 14% alloy. Much more edge holdability, much more corrosion resistance and toughness than your plain carbon steel. And taking the next step beyond that would be the stainless steels, which have at least 12% chrome to make them stainless. And then from there, some of the even more exotic stainless steels have added 4% moly and 2% vanadium. A vanadium carbide is actually the hardest carbide that can be made. So obviously vanadium adds quite a bit of wearability, edge holdability to the blade. Molybdenum adds some toughness and some hardenability. So basically that's how it works. Plain carbon steels at one end of the spectrum. As you add alloy, you're going to add complexity to the steel, complexity to the heat treat, and you're going to also add those properties that those alloys can bring to the table. So, at the other end from plain carbon, you've got your high exotic stainlesses such as Duratec 20CV and L-Max, which is a very common knife steel these days, and you're looking at 20 to 25% alloy. So from plain carbon with 1% alloy to the exotic stainlesses at the other end of the spectrum with 20 to 25% alloy. That's basically how, all steels came from that original plain carbon steel. So you're still starting with that. No matter what steel you make, you're still starting with that plain carbon steel and then throwing different ingredients in to get the properties that you're looking for.
So the steel up to the knife maker, there's a lot of choices from way down here to way up there, and you can heat treat just about all of it.
We can heat treat any kind of steel that can be hardened, from the plain carbons all the way to the exotic high-speed steels that run at 2,350 degrees Fahrenheit. There are too many choices. I can't answer the question of what's the best steel to make a knife out of. The knife maker basically just has a lot of choices, too many choices. As far as I'm concerned, but I guess that's a good thing.
That's great for the end user.
Great for the end user, because you can find a knife maker out there that's using the steel that you feel is the best, and you got lots of choices. But there's probably at least 40 or 50 commonly used knife steels today, from the very plain carbon all the way to the exotic high speeds and stainlesses.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Brad.
Well, appreciate it.